All righty, we're live. It's Friday, not Wednesday. It's Friday. Silver Doctor is live on air. Me, Mike. I got my better half, Mr. Paul Half Dollar. How you doing, Paul?
Doing good, Mike. Happy Friday to you.
Yes, sir. So we're live, and so in discussing, how can we connect with the community more and just help more people stay in tune with what's going on. Let's add an additional day. So here we are Friday, and of course we're gonna play with it, see how it goes. But more importantly, we want to make sure you guys are involved and get questions answered and just strategize back and forth. So we're gonna do that this afternoon. And so welcome to the live stream.
Yes, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. This was kind of like put together at the last minute. We're not even sure if it's going to be on Friday or what day we're going to use, but we're making these efforts to get the content increased. We got the phone number. We're pumping out more of the live streams because there's just so much going on in these markets and in the economy, Mike.
Exactly. I do agree. And so to give it a second before we get started on some topics. And then, as always, if there is something you guys want to talk about specifically, feel free to highlight it in the chat at Silver Doctors so we can sort of stand out and we can definitely address it. And then also there's a number, 567-336-0844. Give us a call and we can definitely have you join us via live on the show directly. So that being the case, Paul, we got a couple things to talk about. Definitely, I noticed the price in metals was pretty fairly good until it looks like yesterday, and then this morning caught a little bit of a bid. So, what's going on in the silver market as well as metals market in general?
Okay, well, yesterday, yeah, we were going good. We were shot up to like $19.75 at our high. But yesterday we were going good, and then we got a whole lot of pressure starting from the morning on.
Yeah.
Basically started in the early overnight hours. When they like to come in when there's low volume to get the momentum started to the downside. But silver was hit for like over $1 yesterday, right? Over $1, and I like immediately put out a tweet saying, and I thought about you immediately because I was like, oh my goodness, we got a 5% sale on silver right now. But so it was nice, if you were stacking and you're looking out for these things. But basically they're putting out 4 different reasons of why silver, why people were selling their silver, why they had to sell their silver. One of them is trade war progress, right? Because yesterday, early in the morning, about 8 in the morning, they said, well, we're resuming talks again with China in October. So we're really happy that we're making progress.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Then I think it was either 10 or 10:30 in the morning. I don't know exactly the exact time it is, but the ISM manufacturing number came out, and beat expectations. This is ISM non-manufacturing services came out. Data came out, and this, all this is showing that the economy is rebounding here. So what does that mean? That means that there's not going to be so much of a case for the Fed to cut rates. So interest rates went up, bond markets yield on the 10-year note spiked, and gold and silver obviously got sold. And then the third thing, also we had the President Trump tweeted out like something to the extent of really good jobs numbers. So like all of these things are going on yesterday where there is, plenty of cover, right? Plenty of cover to justify why gold and silver especially, are selling off. And, part of that was, I say it's the Exchange Stabilization Fund going in there and manipulating the market because they can, right? Which is what is actually going on. But there's plenty of these excuses that the people are throwing out, like the ones that I just mentioned there.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to say something because some people might not know this, but because we hear when gold moves, right, silver moves faster, right, and when gold goes down, silver goes down even faster, and it's like, well, why is that, right? And I like to explain it kind of like this. You can think about it like taking a test in school, right? Like the number of ounces are like the number of questions on the test, right? And we know silver's a smaller market. So silver's like a test with like 4 questions on it, right? And gold's like a test with like 10 questions on it, right? And then the answers, those are like your dollar movements in and out, right? So if you take a test with 4 questions on it, if you get 2 of them wrong, you failed that test, right? You got a 50%, right? That's the silver market. But if you take a test with 10 questions on it and you get 2 wrong, well, you got an 80, right? So, that's what we mean by, because it's such a smaller market, dollar for dollar coming into it, it just moves it so much faster in either direction because of that. Another way to think about it is like, if like with land navigation with like the Army, right? If you're walking and if you're trying to navigate somewhere to a specific point, if it's just down the block, if you're off a little bit, well, you overshot it, you just got to go down the block. Yeah. But if you're talking about walking like 12 miles down the road, and if you're off just a little bit, by the time you get there, you're going to be way off. So these are just some of the dynamics that are at play there. So yeah, gold is holding steady, right? It's in a sideways channel between 1,500 and 1,550, and then silver just got pummeled yesterday. Great opportunity for people who are buying, but we've seen the rebound today. We can get into that, but again, I'm hogging the mic, and I don't want to do that, Mike.
It's all good. And my question is, those two analogies you gave about the test and then about the distance in miles, is that pre-thought of, or that off the top of your head? Because that was pretty good. I like those analogies.
These are things that I thought about because these are ways that I explain it. Like one time I worked at a call center, right? Like I used to work under contract for the CDC on their national HIV and STD hotline. Right? So $50 been around the block, right? And I've done all these different things. Right? So unfortunately, I'm an expert in sexually transmitted diseases, right? But here's the thing about that. They were like monitoring us. And I was on the Spanish hotline at the time. And, you only got a few phone calls in and they're like, well, this is performance related. So, you're going to take a hit if you don't do good on these. And, we're going to be monitoring and recording these calls now. And and I was like, well, wait a second. And they were like, if you miss 2 calls and you get 2 bad reviews, oh no, it was surveys. And if you miss asking these surveys when we monitor you, then that's going to negatively impact your job. And I was like, but wait a second. It's 2 reviews. If I'm only getting 4 calls and I forget to ask the survey on 2 of them, then I've already failed. And so these are, I've thought about these things before because the other thing is people ask why, and then you start going off on all these fancy economic terms and people don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, man.
So just because there's such a wide range of understanding, and that's understandable.
Yeah, definitely. Now, prior to some of the conditions that you listed that impacts the price of metals and whatnot, my initial thought heading into September, heading into this fall season, just from prior history, kind of getting the feel that usually in September there's always some real big gyrations in the equities markets in general. And I'm thinking like definitely China or the U.S. can't afford to have the typical events occur where, not sure why, but the whole idea of them announcing talks at this time at the beginning of September just seemed like it is very strategic so that they don't have any fluctuations in the markets and head into this, presidential cycle for real and the holiday season. They need to minimize as much risk as they can control. And it starts with just basically saying we're meeting, just saying, given a date. Those 2 things alone, as you saw, everything pumped and metals dropped. And so, depending on how you look at it, it's a good opportunity because, a lot of people are excited for the price to go up, but are you really when that impacts, the quantity of weight you can acquire? So, yeah.
Yeah, those are good points. And, did you hear President Trump earlier this week? He said my stock market. He said, because he keeps bringing out this 10,000 point number, right? And he was given an interview from the Oval Office, and he said, if it wasn't for this trade war, my stock market would be 10,000 points higher. And he keeps saying these 10,000 points higher, right? And he's saying, well, if it wasn't for the Fed, my stock market, he said the stock market. This is the first time I've heard him say my stock market. But, he's been saying this 10,000 points. If it wasn't for the trade war, the stock market would be 10,000 points higher. If it wasn't for the Fed, the stock market would be 10,000 points higher. So, yeah, part of that is just, what they call jawboning, right? Trying to talk the markets one way or another. And that was proven, right? Do you remember like last week, that fake phone call?
Oh, yeah.
And then it was proven because like the aide got fired afterwards because they leaked out that phone call never happened or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, his words do in fact move the markets, right? Which is why he's never once said anything about gold or silver. Yeah. Never once.
Now, of course, I got President Trump's Twitter up, so that's definitely, this is a subject matter in of itself. And so it looks like, from I think he has an iPhone, if I'm not mistaken, because I saw it one time posted from iPhone. But it looks like he's very active right now. Like within the last couple hours, he's been. So it's like he probably gets up in the morning, drinks a cup of coffee, and starts firing off tweets. And just thumbing through some of them, one thing caught my attention was once again him talking about Fed interest rates. So I'm gonna pop this open. But it says, I agree with Jim Cramer, at Jim Cramer. So he's highlighting a particular, analyst slash financial whatever. The Fed should lower rates. They were way too early to raise and way too late to cut. And big dose quantitative tightening didn't help either. Where did I find this guy, Jerome? Where did I find this guy, Jerome? Perhaps, my guess would be that, once you got elected, once you got put in place, you met with everybody, they gave you the rundown. They told you that, it's a part of the mandate to have a too big to fail bank, former employee, i.e. Goldman Sachs employee on your staff. And so we got a list of candidates, you pick from them. And of course, who do you pick? His guy. This guy.
Yeah, and everybody was like, oh, Jerome Powell, he's different. I mean, he's his own guy at the Fed. He's not going to, he's going to do what needs to be done, and he's not going to be doing all this Janet Yellen stuff, and he's doing the exact same thing, right? Mm-hmm. The only problem that President Trump has is that he's not doing it fast enough, right? I mean, my opinion on that, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's theatrics going back and forth, and I think it's by design. But yeah, I mean, he's still doing what Janet Yellen was doing, what Bren Bernanke was doing, what Greenspan was doing. He's still contributing the same exact things, just not quite fast enough. Right. I'm going to put something into the chat right here, Mike. This is something that I use a lot, and this is useful for like anybody who wants to search like President Trump's Twitter feed. Mm-hmm. But like that right there is a place where you can like, just search words. And it goes back through his whole entire Twitter history. And that's where it shows you that it was sent from his iPhone or he retweeted it and stuff like that. So that's a nice little resource to have. I use that a lot, actually.
Okay. So man, this is nice. Twitter archive. Okay. So I'm gonna try something to see how this goes. So I'm gonna try. So should I put it in parentheses or just type in any word, see what pops up?
Type in any word. Type in the word inflation, because just a few minutes ago, he used that word inflation and used the word no right in front of it again.
All right, here we go. I see it. Let me click on that one. So what do we do? Just click on it, or what do we do?
Yeah, and then it shows a link, and the link will open in a new tab. Are you in like a browser session right now?
Yeah, so it's loading on my side.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so because I want to type in the word gold and see if he's ever mentioned the word gold before.
Yeah, well, basically, like congratulations on the women's team for winning the gold.
Okay.
Or the United States economy is the gold standard of the world, like stuff like that. Right? I've searched this. Right?
Yeah.
I've searched this several times. So.
All right, it says Germany sells 30-year bonds offering negative yields. Germany competes with the U.S. over federal does not allow us to do what we must do. They put us at a disadvantage against our competition. Strong dollar, no inflation. They move like quicksand. Fight or go home. Interesting. No inflation. So, yeah, we've talked about that before. I think everyone would agree that, there's elevated prices in a lot of areas, but unfortunately, it's not charted in the PCE the way the Fed does it. So, yes, not surprised.
Yes. Sorry, I just laughed there because who was it? It was Optimist Locust. He said that link's not safe for work. I guess he was talking about the Trump Twitter archive link or something like that. Sounds pretty funny.
Oh man! So watch this. We we once again once we get started, we tend to forget about there's people actually watching us. So let's check into the chat and see if there's any questions or thoughts out there. And speaking of which, how many people are? Let me check and see how many people are joining us. Can you see how many people tuning in thus far?
I see 132.
132
on the live feed right now.
All right, how's everybody doing this afternoon? And so, just we can make this like a free for all Friday type of thing as well. If there's something you guys want to talk about in particular, feel free to let us know in the chat. Or phone lines haven't rung yet, so once again, you guys might not want to hear our voices, but we would love to hear yours. So give us a call if you like. So it looks like we do have a question. I'm seeing a highlighted. It says, I'm trying to understand the rate cut and effects on precious metals. When Fed cuts rates, silver/gold go up, correct? ? I can't find a good answer online. Paul, thoughts?
Okay. Well, it has to do with basically inflation, right? And the fact that when the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates, a couple things are happening, right? They're making money easier to access. They're making credit easier to access, right? So they're increasing the credit supply. They're inflating the money supply, right? Yeah. So that's just the purest sense of inflation. Then the other thing about the rate cuts There's a couple things about rates, right? There's what they call nominal rates, and there's what they call real rates, right? Mm-hmm. Nominal rate is the actual inflation, is the actual interest rate. So what the Fed funds rate is at 2 to 2.25, right? So that's the nominal rate. That's the rate you see, the actual number. But the real rate, that's when you take into account what the inflation rate is. Mm-hmm. So for example, if the nominal rate, say, is 2%, right? So if you're theoretically have savings in a bank and you're getting 2% interest on them, right? And if the inflation rate is 3%, then what's the actual real interest rate? The actual real interest rate is negative 1%, mm-hmm. right? Which means that every month your money's losing 1% of its purchasing power. No. So this is why gold and silver go up in price as the interest rates come down, because the Fed is essentially under inflation, which they always are. Inflation is understated at that. I mean, we know inflation is way higher than people are leading us to believe. So there's that. Uh-huh.
No, also keep in mind for those that may or may not be aware that, a part of the whole central bank and Federal Reserve mandate is to control price stability, which happens to be linked to inflation. And so the very concept of them shooting for 2% basically is a 2% tax, or it's a 2% tax automatically on how they measure their own inflationary measurements. And that's all tied into the fact that because the monetary base continues to expand, they're able to inflate or devalue the currency at 2%, annually or whatever, as is mentioned. So, sorry.
Yeah, and, that 2% is totally a bogus number, and it's killing the dollar is what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Because stability is not going up or not going down. It's just stable, right, as far as with your prices. And then, over time, the natural movement for prices is to decrease because of increases in productivity, right? So you have an increase in supply, which, theoretically with supply and demand, you increase the supply and then reduce the price over time. So the big thing about the interest rate cuts are, real interest rates are getting even more deeper into the negative with these rate cuts there.
Yeah, I actually want to pull up. Let me see. I try to find a visual aid. Let me see if I can find it. And then also, just what came to mind in regards to that question is that when interest rates are cut, prices in metals, could go down because it's in cutting rates incentivizes borrowing. And so you have more people interested in taking out a cheaper loan to speculate or to invest in because they can actually produce and earn off of that, as opposed to buying metals where it'll sit and it will, won't grow. It's just, just a rock that protects value. So that also plays a major role into Fed rates cutting because it incentivizes debt. So as rates go down now, and especially I'm anticipating, I heard about a cut coming this month, whether it be a quarter or 0.5%, not sure. But that right there will also spur more people to take out more debt. Also, on debt, did you see that Apple is looking to issue their own bond to try to raise $7 billion, or they have raised $7 billion to buy back their own corporate shares?
It was like $56 billion in two different offerings. Yes, $56 billion in two different offerings.
Serious. And then they're sitting on, I think, $200 billion in cash or something. They're sitting on something.
I don't know what their cash position is, but it's something absurd like that. Yes.
Yeah. And so what I'm of course there's a strategy and a plan behind it, but the fact they're sitting on so much, but yet they're going to utilize the low interest rates to borrow to buy back shares. So go ahead.
It's so sick and twisted, right? Because here's part of the whole buyback scam, and I mean this is just corrupt to the core, and it's not just Apple; it's all these companies that are doing that, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm borrowing money at 1%, right, and then I buy back all of this stock, right, and then the stock price goes up, right, I've increased the value of the company, so then I can effectively pay off that bond and pocket the difference. Do you see what I'm saying there? Mm-hmm. I don't know if that
it makes it appear to the average investor that Apple is doing so great because the stock price is going up, but in actuality, it's self-induced based upon them borrowing and pumping their own stuff up. That has to be illegal, doesn't it?
It's not illegal if the stock buybacks aren't. And here's the thing, right?
It should be.
When they buy back their own stock, see, there's only a certain amount of Apple shares out there, right? So let's say there's 1 million shares out there. If they buy back 100,000, guess what? There's only 900,000 shares out there. So more people around the world have to compete for those same $900,000 shares. That's what increases your value, which is totally different than what happens in silver. There's no other thing in the entire world like silver where they can just sell and sell and sell and sell and sell silver. That doesn't exist. You know, the amount of shares that they print up to sell into the silver market is unlimited, and that's what they do. The only limiting factor is that there does have to be some physical supply delivered upon. But, you know, that's small in comparison to the amount of paper. So, you know, Apple's just not printing up a whole bunch of shares at will. And when they buy back their shares, they're actually getting rid of shares that are outstanding, right? Which is called the float, right? It's just the amount of shares that are available at any given time. So just the whole system in and of itself, and that shows how it ties back into the precious metals as well.
Yeah. Now, I want to pull up a visual aid that I came across yesterday that I think is very interesting. And so this is visualizing the purchasing power of the dollar over the last century. So as you were explaining or answering our question, this came to mind, and so I thought I would share this. But you know, it just shows that since, of course, 1913, just all the events that have occurred that have impacted the purchasing power of the dollar. And so my thought was, if someone presented this visual aid to you, but yet you didn't know it was a Federal Reserve note, aka a dollar, and they said that this was a share, this was the valuation of a corporation, and this is their last 100-year history of them being a publicly traded company. And if you saw this, they said, would you be interested in investing in this particular share price, given the fact 1913, when the company started, their share price was at $1 or $100, and now today, 106 years later, their share price is 3 cents. And so, would you invest or have any hope or be optimistic about this particular this corporation appreciating in time or what?
Yeah, exactly. Well said. That's a good point. And just to clarify, because before I forget this, someone was like, silver doesn't float. No, I wasn't talking about the silver float. I'm talking about the Apple float, the float of Apple stock.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're exactly right. You know, and then on top of that, and think about this, right? Because this also ties back into the inflation and the purchasing power and the precious metals. But as the value and the purchasing power of that dollar is going down, it's additionally gold and silver prices are going up, because as those real rates of interest are low, right? If the Fed is saying we're going to have 2% inflation, well, that means that you're going to lose 2% of purchasing power every year. At the same time, theoretically, gold and silver are going to go up by 2% per year, right? Because that's what they're saying that they want. So it's even more so than what you're explaining, because not only is the value of the purchasing power of the dollar going down, but in relation to gold and silver, it's going down big time.
Yeah, so I thought I would share that.
Think about this too. Here's another way to look at it, right? In 1933, you know, if you would have turned in that gold coin, right, and got your $20.67, right, what would that gold coin be worth right now? I mean, we can look it up. We can go to SD Bullion and see what some pre-33 gold costs, right? It probably costs like, I mean, I don't know, because I don't know what the premium is they're charging, whether it's like $50 or $100. I don't know what they're charging over spot for some pre-33 gold, right? But if you turn in that one gold coin, that one gold coin is worth essentially, you know, $1,600, let's call it. But if you had that $20 bill in 1933, what would that $20 bill be worth today? Nothing. It would be worth nothing. You know, maybe $1. Right. So that just goes to show, you know, just like you're talking about with the purchasing power and the loss of value over time as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. Now I'm on SD trying to find. Let me see. I'm trying to go through the gold coins. Let me see here. I gotta find it, but I'll find it and let people know, because I'm curious to find out myself.
and that goes to what we're saying. You know, people know these things are coming, right? Like when Roosevelt put out that executive order. And you know, unconstitutional in my opinion, right? And ordered everybody to turn in their gold, right? And they knew that a year later they were going to revalue that gold. I mean, that's not something that they were just like a year later, like, hey, let's revalue gold to $35 an ounce. No, they knew that was coming.
Yeah.
You know, so with that inside information, using that moral hazard and the corruption in government, you know, they get rich off of that stuff. And then the average person who falls for it, you know, because, we got to support the president, we got to do the right thing and turn in our gold. Well, guess what? They lost, right? They lost.
All right, so I pulled up. I found it. It's $20 Liberty Eagle Double Eagle gold coin, and so this is a pretty coin. I mean, this is a 19. This example here is a 1904 Double Eagle gold. It's just pretty. Imagine, like, going back to that time frame and actually having a couple of those in your pocket, like just shaking them, and just like that different paradigm of money is just something else. But we got 1,600 for credit, and Bitcoin is 1559. So not the premium above the actual spot price is not too much. So yeah, but so trading Federal Reserve notes for real money.
Yes, exactly. And back in 1933, you had to trade real money for Federal Reserve notes. And if you did, that's another reason why I don't think that, and we can go into that if you want. One of these days, I want to plan to debunk all of these myths about why there can't be a gold confiscation. People like to throw this out there. And it would take me a while. It would be a whole show in and of itself. But I can debunk all of those myths, why there won't be, there can't be, and there will not be a gold confiscation.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, like fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three times, or however that saying goes, right? Like, people are not going to do this again, right? Yeah. And they actually made it like illegal to own gold until like the 70s.
Yeah, it was an entire. I wrote a blog post like 2 years ago. My last blog post that I wrote, and it took a generation to forget about gold as money. And it was from 1933 to 1974, I believe, when it was. So that 41-year period, that conditioned the American and the global population, and it removed money. It removed gold and silver out of their psyche. More importantly, gold out of their psyche of it being money, because when it was reinstated back into the system, it became labeled as a commodity. And so, yeah, since then, it's been hard to convince people what money is really in comparison to the financialization of all the products that we've been sold.
Yeah, and people can't define a dollar, right? I mean, you ask them, what is $1? And they're like, well, it's $1. No, it's not $1, right? I mean, what it's supposed to be is a very specific weight and purity of silver. That's all a dollar is.
Exactly.
Or gold, depending on what the denomination is.
Yeah. Now, let's get to the chat. Let's find out what's going on. Any questions out there? Any more thoughts? And so no one's called in, so maybe they didn't want to talk to us today. But yet, I'm sure there's one brave soul that might have a question they want to address.
There is a good comment from John Michael Karma. Government has lost credibility. No one will turn in anything now. I would assume guns are included in that. But yes, exactly, right? Because in the Army, they say follow an order as long as it, if something is unethical, illegal, or I can't remember what the third one was because it's been so long since I've been in the Army now. Don't do it, right? So yeah, I mean, the government is so corrupted, unethical, right, and doing all these illegal things that I'm not saying don't follow it, but why would somebody follow that guidance, or even that law for that matter?
Yeah.
But anyway, not to take off of the chat. So let's go ahead and get back in that.
Yeah. So let me see here. So nobody highlight anything. So what I'll do in the meantime, for those that are tuning in, to just acknowledge your presence. I appreciate you guys checking in with us. We got Jeff, we got John Michael, we got Richard H, we got Armed Resistance, we got Pabar, we got Albert S, we got David, and we got low blood pressure. John says, in biblical times, gold was a symbol, silver was the currency. Yeah, that definitely makes sense to me, because I hear, just from a biblical standpoint, and just the mentioning of gold and silver in the Bible, of course, you hear silver. I pay attention to silver more mentioned of actually being utilized in transactions, in the form of the shekel and the dinar and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what was Judas paid off in? He was paid off in 30 shekels of silver, right? And, throughout all of this history, that's why I say that the one thing, right, that governments and bankers around the world are scared of more than anything in the entire world is silver. And right, and what was the only thing that could get, somebody to betray, if you're Christian, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, right? It was silver.
Right. All right. So sorry to cut you off. We got a call. Let's find out what's going on.
Nice.
Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello? Looks like we had somebody on here. Give us a call back. We'll get you on here. And so, yeah, sorry, we can keep going from there. But we did have a call, so that was our first call. What else we got going on here? Because dollars
Forget
defined
your first
in
general
coinage.
order. Yeah, I did forget the first general order. I can't say the NCO creed anymore, I'm sure. I mean, the government injected me with so many vaccines that it's messed up my memory here. So I don't know if the first one is I won't abandon my post or I will follow orders. But anyway, yes, I am guilty of that. I do forget a lot of things.
All right, so we do have a question here. It says, what do you guys think of the quote fair price of silver is in today's dollar purchasing power, and what is a likely gold silver ratio? What's the fair price of silver in today's dollars? And then what are our thoughts on the gold and silver ratio? I guess present and future.
Okay, is that for me to answer?
Yeah, sure. Knock it out.
I mean, it's an easy answer, right? It's a very easy answer. All it is, you take out, you see the amount of debt there is, right? And you divide that by how much silver there is, right? And then that's what the fair price is. So, like when people talk about $10,000 gold or $20,000 gold, what they're talking about is how much gold would it take to clear out the debt, right? That's why I say I think it's actually like $80,000, right? That's why it's not that ridiculous to say $80,000, because if you want to go back to 100% gold-backed gold standard, canceling out all of the debt, then yes, you're talking about an $80,000 gold price. So then you would divide that by 16, right? Because 16 is the ratio that was established in the Coinage Act of 1792, and then that's your silver price. I'm actually going to do that right now. I'm going to do 80,000 divided by 16. So I can't remember what it was.
All right. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up the U.S. debt clock so people can get an idea as to what
$5,000. That's the fair silver price right now.
Wow. Okay, that's different. All right. So we do have a caller. Let's see if we can get him on here officially. And so, hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. This is low blood pressure from Burger King in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Low blood pressure. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind this afternoon?
Good. I'm just enjoying this Whopper without a bun. I'm on the low carb diet. Anyway, I wanted to ask Paul. He's talking about no confiscation. What does he believe? He believes that there will be.
Paul, do you think there will be confiscation, or they're not able to confiscate?
I think they will not be able to confiscate.
Okay. So yeah, there's no confiscation.
Okay. I misunderstood him. I was like, how would they enforce that, And what are they going to do, go door to door and torture you until you give them the gold or what?
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's one of the points, right? That's one of the several points. Because, if it comes down to a gold confiscation, does the federal government really have the resources to go door to door, right? They don't have those resources. So that's one of the things. Two, just like low blood pressure said, what are they going to do? Torture you? Because, I guess they would, but how would they even know that you had it in the first place, right? So they couldn't find it even. So that's another thing. Another reason, it already happened once, right? So, and Americans don't have any gold or silver anyway, so to speak of. So it's not like they're going to be able to find stuff, right?
And watch this. Another point would be, if they came down to that, where that was even brought into question, there will probably be other issues that probably have more importance than actually getting gold and silver out of people's hands. Because I'm assuming there'll be some chaos and some social unrest and a lot of other issues that probably outweigh going to find some weight in people's stashes or something like that. So yeah.
Yes. And in addition, right, as soon as that happens, what happens to the price of gold and silver? It immediately shoots to the roof because all of a sudden you got the government basically saying this stuff is super valuable, so you got to turn it in because we really need it. So,
exactly.
Free market forces take over. You can't stop free market forces, right? This is why we have, black markets, right? Because there's always going to be supply and there's always going to be demand for any good or any service that can be produced or served on.
Right, good point. Well, low blood pressure. Appreciate your call in, my friend.
Thing.
Yep, go ahead. Go ahead.
I want everybody that's listening probably already knows this, but I try to tell my family and friends, nobody listens to me. The only confiscation that they're going to have is going to be at your bank account, and it's going to be in your fiat when they hyperinflate it. That's where they're going to confiscate everybody's wealth.
Yeah. Hey, I don't disagree.
I agree with that too completely. That's a great point. Because yes, and that's the other thing, right? Because it's, first we just mentioned off several reasons, right? And there's several more, but I would have to think about them because they're just not, they're back in my deep, in the second hard drive in the back of my head.
Storage drive.
But and it's old and it spins and it's kind of rattly. But anyway, yes, it's so much easier, right? Just like in Cyprus, right? With the bail-ins, it's so much easier to just zap that fiat digitally from a bank account than to try and go find something that's real that they're never going to be able to find. Yeah. So that's an excellent point, which is another reason why you were talking about a few weeks ago, Mike, the risk that there is to the pension and retirement plans out there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And also, I mean, and so low blood pressure, I appreciate you calling in. Yeah, so I figure we'll just keep it moving. I want to share let me exit out real quick. All right, low blood pressure, I appreciate you calling, man. All right, gotta make sure I cancel my call. So, just a little small subject matter, not small, but I want to touch on the retirement. And so there's an article that I came across yesterday that talks about how more people are dipping into their retirement savings early. And the idea behind it was they gave reasons as to why that was. But I was thinking, like, man, at the end of the day, it's just the beginning, because I think more people will be dipping into their retirement, not necessarily because they want to, but because of the circumstances around them, they might be kind of forced to. And so I'll pull it up here. And so it says 52% of Americans have rated their retirement savings early. Here's why that's a mistake. So it's an article that tries to tell people don't take your money out. But then, like, it's some things I want to touch on, but we have another call. And so remind me to get back to that before we sign off. And let me get this call. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Chicago area.
All righty. What's your name?
Thank you. My question is, okay, so if the financial crash occurs, and I mean, you just talked about confiscation of silver, but what about countries like Canada that have no gold reserves? What would be the likelihood that they would start nationalizing mines in their country to get their stack back up versus, going door to door? What about nationalizing of the mining companies? Do you think that's a risk factor, at least for some countries?
That's a great question there, because I'll share my thoughts real quick. But I believe, especially in Canada, because they've sold their gold. I would imagine Canada being a very naturally rich and prosperous land itself. I could imagine gold mines and any type of natural resources whatsoever being confiscated and brought under government control, just because that seems like something that will be a last-minute effort to try to compete with all the situations happening globally. So I believe it could be possible. That's why when it comes to mining stocks, stuff like that, I'm not well versed in it. I've talked to a lot of people, but that's a question I have, because there's a risk of governments being, a little bit on the greedy side and wanting to take everything that they can. Why not mines? So that's my thought. I think it could possibly happen. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, governments really don't do anything right. So even if they would nationalize the mines, it's just going to be so much more inefficient, because that's how governments are. They're inefficient, right? So, and then the other thing that I think is interesting is, do you remember when Justin Trudeau was sworn in, when he swore his allegiance to the Queen?
Yeah, I saw that.
It was on the back of Canada's money, right? It's actually the front of Canada's money. It's the Queen of England, right? So they're going to be taking their marching orders not from themselves, but from London, right? Yeah. So that's another thing to think about. So it's really not a question about what's Canada going to do. It's a question about what's the, British Royals going to do.
What the Commonwealth wants.
But yeah, as far as the nationalizing, because here, right, in the United States, with the Coinage Act of 1792, it was like an agreement with the government, right, where they would, the mines were private, and then they would supply the treasury, and the treasury would purchase the gold and the silver and stuff like that. But as far as the straight up nationalization, I mean, yeah, we hear those, and, it could happen, but even if it would happen, well, there's going to be less gold and silver produced, because the governments, just by their very nature, are not efficient.
So the quality of the mines will diminish, and there'll probably be a black market. There'll be a lot of theft, and there'll be a lot of corrosion around those mines, to where at the end of the day, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, because who's going to work for free or for less than anyway? Yeah. So yeah.
Think about Venezuela's oil sector for that, right? That where they nationalized the oil industry, and it's on PVDS. I can't remember the exact name of it. But
PVDS.
what's happened to their oil? It's like plummeted to like 500,000 barrels a day or something when it was like in the millions.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you that once the government gets involved, it just gets messed up. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what I say, where the government can only do one of two things: get in the way or get out of the way. And if they nationalize the mines and they get in the way, and in the end they're shooting themselves in their own foot.
Yeah, I agree. Caller, appreciate you calling in, and thanks for the thoughts and the question.
Thank you. If I could just add two more something.
No, go ahead.
If we go back to a gold and silver standard, the governments would have a lot of incentive to nationalize the mines in that case, because they would want to be control of, how much money they have and produce. But that's all I have to add. And thank you for taking my call.
Thanks for calling. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, and that's the good point, right? But that goes back to they're going to be sourcing it, right, from the mines, and then traditionally speaking, right, because you're talking about how much is coming out of the ground. Traditionally speaking, how much has been coming out of the ground has basically been at the rate of population growth.
Yeah.
So it's just been a slow, steady output.
All right, so it looks like we have another question, and it looks like from Unnecessary Experiment, it says, what are the chances that the government charges massive taxes on gold gains? Sounds like a confiscation to me. So yeah, I'm of the mindset that we right now, whatever tax structure we are under now, definitely if we reach a problematic environment where the government's broke and struggling, people starving, whatever, not only will they be hyperinflated, but they're going to try to counteract that with excessive taxes. Using the Weimar Republic as a great example. So whoever's out there benefiting or prospering off of the demise of our country and currency, they're going to really look to penalize those people with some outrageous taxes, borderline call-out confiscation, jail time, saying that they could probably say that you're the cause of all this, whatever. So I would imagine whatever tax rates now, the government would definitely double, triple, quadruple it, just because that no one's supposed to prosper technically when things are in a problematic state, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they call that like windfall profits. But, we're in financial crisis right now, and, they didn't do that for Bitcoin, right? And you want to talk about some seriously huge windfall profits there. And then furthermore, not saying what to do, but, there's a reason why there's tax revolts, right? When the government is evil and corrupt to the core, and then they say, well, we're going to take this. Well, if you got the SLV or the GLD, and they're going to have this windfall tax on it, then you got a problem. But if you got a gold coin in your hand, you're with a private individual, then that's something else.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there as well.
Yeah, buddy. All right, let's check into the chat and see what else is going on out here.
Someone did ask a question about SD Bullion and reporting, and I don't know how that stuff works. I'm sure you don't, because we don't actually work for SD Bullion. That's the thing, right? So, Silver Doctors and SD Bullion are separate in that sense. So, just call up SD Bullion, ask them what are the reporting requirements, because, I do know, like, depending on, like, how much you buy or how much you sell or what it is that you're buying or selling, then legally there's supposed to be some reporting that takes place, that is taking place, I'm sure, because, SD Bullion is on the up and up. They're not doing anything they're not supposed to be doing. They're doing everything, crossing all their T's, they're dotting all their I's. But yeah. We don't know that. Me and you don't know that, so give them a call.
Yeah, good stuff there. What else we got going on here? There's where to go to Precious Metals IRA. We got a few pennies here. And so we got a few pennies there. Yeah, so no questions directly. Any more thoughts people want to call in, feel free. We'll probably be on for a couple more minutes. As always, when you're having fun, time flies.
Oh, Mike, yes, time does fly. Just a couple things real quick, Mike.
Yeah.
The jobs report came out today.
Okay.
And just yesterday, President Trump said, jobs report looks really great, right? And then today, the number comes out, it's 130,000 jobs, right? Which is why gold and silver initially moved up, because that adds to the case for the Fed to cut rates.
Yeah.
So this is a terrible report. It was the estimates were 160,000 or something. So it was way below estimates. But what nobody is saying, right, is I haven't dug into the numbers. I just looked at the surface, but at least 25,000 of these jobs are government jobs, right? So over 20% of the jobs created is the government itself. That is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because they're not adding anything. They're not contributing anything. All that they're doing is extracting from the population to pay for that stuff. So when all the jobs that you're creating are government jobs, that is not a good sign. And then on top of that, there's not many jobs at all. right? So 80% of the jobs that created were private, and they're these low-paying service jobs. 20% of the jobs are these cushy government jobs that the low-paying people have to pay for.
Yeah. So I have the blog post you put up, and so I got some numbers in front of me here, and so just from a little excerpt you put out, and so we got non-farm payrolls, 164 prior, 163 consensus.
Oh yeah, those are like consensus. That was like before, and then that right there is the link, the BLS to the actual job report.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, man. Yeah. So Paul, I'll say today's been a very good day. If there's anything else you want to touch on, we can. If not, we can get ready to dial back. It's been 45 minutes, give or take. I've enjoyed back and forth. Did we miss anything?
No. One little thing I just wanted to say, because I don't know why this is still an issue, but people talk about equal pay, right, for women, and like, I mean, this is settled in like 30 seconds, Mike, and it's just super simple, right?
Yeah.
The United States government pays women more than it pays men. So this whole like women don't get paid enough needs to stop, right? Because if you're a specialist or a sergeant or a staff sergeant in the Army, right? If you're a woman, you don't have to do as many push-ups and you don't have to run as fast, right? And if you're a man, you got to do more push-ups and you got to run faster. But you both get the same pay, right? So who's actually getting paid more? The women are getting paid more. By the U.S. government itself. So, I mean, I don't know why people always try and like complicate this whole debate, because we're talking about jobs, right? About how there's not equality in pay. There is equality in pay, and that's your solid proof right there from your own federal government.
Yeah, I imagine that particular angle there might not appease everybody, but there's gonna be somebody out there like this guy. He's a whatever. But anyway,
Sexist.
so yeah. So look, we got our question here, and this is probably our last question. This is from Bashar at Sydney. It says, "Hi, what's easier to sell, silver coins or silver bullion? How would you sell bullion to industries? Thanks." So silver coins or silver bullion, which one's easier to sell? I don't really. I mean, I'm not in the metals business directly to say how that's taken up. But you know, when you just say the word silver to me, there's a price. There's somebody that wants it. You're going to get something for it. But I'm not sure. Any thoughts towards that, Paul?
They're equally as easy to sell, whether it's coins or whether it's bullion.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about like 1,000-ounce bars to companies, that's different. But just in general, right? Like in your local area, if it's business hours, whether it's a coin, whether it's a bar, it doesn't matter what it is. They're buying, right? It's just a matter of what is the premium and what are they paying.
Right.
And if you're not in an area where you can do that, if you're online, right, and you want to sell it, give somebody up a call, within an hour you can sell it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, silver is silver, and it's equally liquid. Gold is gold, and it's equally liquid in any other forms.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think it really matters. As far as if you're trying to sell the industry, obviously they're going to be looking for the 1,000-ounce bars, as opposed to, silver eagle coins.
Yeah, and speaking of which, someone just made a good point that today Jerome Powell, who's in Zurich, is set to give, I guess, some thoughts on the economy or assessment of the, of the global economy or whatnot. So someone asked, what do we think he's going to say? Any thoughts towards that, Paul?
Well, he's in a pickle because, the speech is called like Economic Outlook and Monetary Policy or something like that. So, I mean, I don't know. He's probably going to sidestep it and bring his whole the global economy is showing some signs of stress, even though the U.S. economy is strong. So we're monitoring developments in the global economy and with the trade war that has a new dimension. He's going to be spewing that same stuff as always.
Yeah.
But it's not justifying what the Fed is doing.
Yeah.
Either way. So it'll be interesting. And I'm looking right now. Sure enough, as we're speaking, like right now, gold and silver are taking a hit a little bit. So he must have said something because that speech started at 12:30 Eastern time.
So we will find out, and definitely the markets will reflect as Paul just mentioned is doing now. So, yeah, man. But anyway, so Paul, it's been great hanging out this Friday afternoon with you. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully everybody who's watching has also enjoyed it. I mean, what's the current count? Who's watching us right now? How many people roughly?
181.
181 people tuning in this Friday afternoon. We appreciate it. As always, if you've enjoyed the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Just hit that little button beneath this and show some support for the channel. And then also down beneath this video in the description, we have access to the SD Bullion to get take advantage of the deals. If you guys are interested, we have an opportunity to get the shirts or whatnot, link in the description. And if anybody want to connect with us after this on social media, there's also our Twitter handles there as well. So other than that, it's been fun. Paul, have a great weekend, and let's connect again next week. And hopefully, of course, we're going to have something to talk about because we always will, because everything is happening right now, it seems. But other than that, any last thoughts you want to leave us with, Paul?
It's been great today. It's been a great talk today. We knew there was going to be movements, and we knew that this week was not going to be dull at all. And sure enough, that's exactly how it turned out. And, we kind of got a sense on all these crazy movements. So, I would just like to encourage people to participate because we don't know everything, and we're all learning this together because, the mainstream media is not telling us the truth. So it's up to ourselves to figure it out on our own, right?
Yeah. All right, just sending a couple of thoughts out there in the chat. But anyway, so everybody be blessed, be safe, have a great weekend, and we'll see you sometime next week. And until then, be good. Peace.